Jeanpierre Le Breton. I'm not Eleni Chatzikristou. I mean, she had a meeting in Paris, so she could not stay for the whole week, so I'm going to chair the meeting, this session. So without any further ado, so welcome to the OEP1 session, sharing best practice in planetary science, outreach and education. This is a regular session from our in our EPSC Congress. So the first speaker, Anita Heward, impact through outreach and education with your 2020 research infrastructure. So Anita, we try to stick to 12 minutes. I will try to get the clock starting. Yeah? Okay. So we are running a good 5 minutes late, so we will try to keep that only 5 minutes.
Okay, good. I will try to talk quickly. Okay, good. There we go. So, yes, I am here to tell you today a bit about outreach with Europlanet. In case there are those of you that don't actually know what Europlanet is, it was set up about 10 years ago to overcome fragmentation of Europe's planetary science community. So we have a big planetary science community in Europe, but it's very spread out across many different countries and many different institutions. And the poor old European Space Agency has a bit more of a challenge than many other space agencies in that while it funds the missions, the science that goes with the missions is generally funded at a national level. So there's lots of people doing their own thing, and Europlanet was set up to try and provide some kind of level of coordination across those 27 or so countries. And it aims to provide a sort of coherent discussion forum by having things like EPSC, and provides access to shared facility, data, tools, etc., etc. And it grew out of a collaboration between all the scientists involved in the Cassini-Huygens project. Jeanpierre was the mastermind, or one of the masterminds, behind the project, so he is to blame or to be congratulated, depending on which way you think about it. There you go. And Jeanpierre and Michel Blanc and other colleagues put together a bid to the European Commission back in 2004.
Even 3
a long time ago. And they were funded €2 million. Sorry, it's squeaking at me rather frighteningly. They were funded €2 million to do some networking activities with the aim of building a planetary science community. And following the success of that, they were given €6 million to build a research infrastructure, to do more of the sharing facilities and personnel and tools and so on. And now we've just received funding for €10 million, which started on the 1st of September. We have a new research infrastructure, an advanced research infrastructure called Europlanet 2020. It will run for 4 years, and we have an outreach budget within that of €800,000, which we hope will allow us to do some useful things for this community. Within Europlanet overall, actually that's out of date, there are 34 beneficiaries from 18 countries, and then we have a number of associate partners like ESA. Within the outreach activity, we have 8 partners and 3 associates to help us do our activities. But Europlanet 2020, the research infrastructure, that's not just it. We had this funding hiatus between the end of the FP7 project and this new funded research infrastructure. And within that, we set up a consortium. So this is something that any institute involved in planetary science can join. I would encourage you to find out whether your institution is signed up, and if not, please encourage them to sign up. There should be membership packs. I think actually they've run out and we will put some more at the top of the massive escalator. But this organisation is linked by a memorandum of understanding. We've got about 70 institutions signed up, and we aim to get pretty much the whole planetary science community signed up over the next few years. We think there are about 200 institutes, so we have some work to do. And the membership pack will tell you all about the membership benefits of that. But in terms of what we're doing for outreach, which is what I presume you're interested in today, our activities are mainly broken down into 3 strands. Activities to support people like you, people working within the planetary science outreach community. We have activities for dissemination to stakeholders, so all those people like policymakers and industry and the general public and the media, and basically anybody that has any kind of stake or investment in planetary science. And then we will be developing some outreach tools of our own over the next couple of years that will be available to the community within a couple of years. So in terms of who we're trying to reach, outreach providers, which means a lot of different people, you know, social media managers, schools liaison officers, policy officers, general public outreach people, informal learning science centres, that kind of thing, and so on. In terms of our team, we are led by Science Office, headed up by the lovely Mariana Barossa, who is the co-coordinator of this outreach work package for Europlanet. The others involved are the Paris Observatory, UCL in London, who are responsible for evaluation activities, University of Latvia, Greece, Eleni, who sadly can't be here, is responsible for coordinating meetings and particularly outreach activities around EPSC, and then Cabinter in Spain, Vilnius and Leiden. I'll tell you a bit more about what they're doing in a moment. So, in terms of supporting you guys, we will be organising a number of workshops over the next few years. In the last phase of Europlanet, we tried to have a national representative in every country who would help us with outreach activities, and in some respects that worked, and in some respects that didn't work, because we ended up with a group of people who were quite disparate and had different interests, and things work very differently in different countries, as anybody that has to deal with many different countries knows. So what we thought would work better this time is to have dedicated workshops focused on specific groups. So for instance, social media, or for instance, press, or for instance, schools liaison. So we'll be having a number of workshops organised around that, and Eleni will be responsible for that. We want to make sure that the outreach tools that are already out there, that everybody has been producing, the best of those are given an opportunity to shine. There have been many efforts over the years to try and create sort of portals. The EU has, or European Commission has just funded this project, EU Space Awareness, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. But we will be working with them and their Astro Edu platform to try to make sure that planetary science activities are the best planetary science activities, and resources that are already out there are given visibility. We have a little funding scheme as well, and a prize with the aim of providing support and profile to people working in outreach activities, because we know that many institutions are not necessarily as supportive as they should be. So our first workshop should take place towards the middle of next year. We are probably going to be holding our first workshop in Vilnius in Lithuania. We're not quite sure who that audience is going to be yet, but please do check on social media and our website. We also will be running training workshops, science communication training workshops, coordinated by the University of Leiden, to give the scientists in the community an opportunity to develop their communication skills for different audiences. Most importantly, one of the big things for Horizon 2020 and projects that are funded with that is demonstrating impact. So we will be developing an evaluation toolkit, which will allow people that do outreach activities to have some tools, some surveys, some tools that they can use to get some feedback on how effective their activities have been, and demonstrate that they are doing good work, hopefully, or not, or learn from that if they're not. We will be relaunching our outreach funding scheme. We offer small grants, so these are really pilot studies, or funding for pilot studies of €5,000 to €10,000 for public engagement activities. The criteria that we use to judge these are innovation, widening participation, and best practice. And we also have an annual prize. It hasn't been awarded for the last 2 years, but it will start again. The call will go out towards the end of this year. And the aim of that is to raise the profile of people that are doing fantastic outreach work within the planetary science community, and also give them a bit of a pat on the back for often their not very acknowledged work for all their that they often do in their spare time. These are the kind of projects that we've funded in the past. We've funded Lego Rosetta models in collaboration with ESA, a virtual microscope giving access to meteorite collections, a tactile moon, and a lot of these have gone on to do much bigger projects. And these are some of our prize winners from previous years. Jay Tate, who founded the Space Guard Centre and has done a lot to raise awareness of the threat from near-Earth objects to policymakers. Yael Naze from the University of Liège, who has written many books. The Austrian Space Forum do fantastic work with their community, and Jean Lindenstein. I think there is a Planetary downstairs in the exhibition, is there not? There is. An amazing tool to simulate auroras. I'm going to gloss over that. Actually, one of the main things that we have been doing within Europlanet is engagement with policymakers. My colleague Veronica Rasler, who is not here today, has been working very hard to get to know the members of the EPSC committee, which is responsible for making decisions on science and technology within the European Parliament. We do a number of individual briefings and have organised a number of exhibitions, dinner debates, and we will carry on with that activity over the next few years. And we will be also providing outreach tools. So Mariana's company is very well known for its animations. It's been working with ESA now for a number of months, and they will be producing a series of short videos around planetary science, which we will make available to the community. These are going to be animated to facilitate translation. And Europlanet's most exciting thing that it does in terms of science is going out to exotic places that are a bit like other planets. This is the Danakil depression in Ethiopia. It's a bit like primordial Earth. It's got very extreme environments. So we will be giving live access where we can through social media to schools, groups, and so on. And we will also be developing an activity called Planetary Climate Detectives, where we'll be challenging kids to develop, to collect climate data and compare that with real data from Mars, Curiosity, and other data sets. So in terms of what we're doing, we're kicking off our activities mainly in November. We have this outreach session here, which has been coordinated by Eleni. The prize and funding scheme will be launched by the end of the year. We're redesigning our Europlanet website, outreach website, which is a bit of a mess at the moment, but will be beautiful soon thanks to the efforts of Science Office. Our policy activities are up and running. One thing that I do want to mention is that we've been working with EU Space Awareness to put together a careers survey to actually get some proper data on what kind of things have triggered people to go into a career in planetary science. You should have all received an email with a link to that survey. I think Copernicus will send that out again at the end of the week. Please, I would encourage you to fill that in and also to circulate it to your colleagues. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Next talk is by Emily Baldwin and colleagues from ESA. Hello World, harnessing social media for the Rosetta mission. Emily.
very much. Okay, so I'd like to share with you some of our experiences and activities that we did in support of the Rosetta mission last year, and continuing into this year, of course, and coming at it from a social media angle. But just to set the scene, in case you're unfamiliar with the mission, it launched 11 years ago now in 2004 on a 10-year mission to Comet 67P. It passed by the Earth 3 times, it passed by Mars, and it also did 2 asteroid flybys. It then went into a period of 31 months hibernation, during which time the spacecraft was on its furthest distance from the Sun. So it was put into hibernation with the only thing on board really was a computer with an alarm clock to wake it up in January 2014. Of course, you know how the story has played out. We arrived at the comet, landed at the comet, and the Rosetta orbiter is still studying the comet today. Just comparing that timeline then with social media, in fact, Rosetta is about the same age as Facebook and the photo sharing site Flickr. And so social media has also come a long way in the 10 years that Rosetta has been in space. ESA has always been involved with social media, joining YouTube in 2005, Facebook and Twitter in 2009. What I'm going to focus on are the Rosetta mission-specific accounts, and primarily for this talk, the Twitter account. The next speaker, Karen, will touch on lightly the Facebook and Instagram accounts, because these were really introduced to support some of the competitions that we did for public engagement. The Twitter account was kind of quite special from the beginning in that we didn't use it until the spacecraft itself woke up. This is an excerpt from one of the top-level press releases that we put out prior to the spacecraft waking up from hibernation, announcing that the Twitter account would also wake up on this occasion, and this would be one of the ways in which you would know that the spacecraft had woken up. So while I'm talking about social media, I just wanted to note that this is always in support of traditional media. It's not instead of, it's just another way to reach new audiences. And so we use social media as well to share things from our ESA websites, and also, of course, the Rosetta blog, which is used as a way to begin to engage with our audiences through the comment function, and is also the home to some more technical reports about the operational status of the mission, and more in-depth scientific reports that we provide in collaboration with many of the PIs of the instruments. So skipping ahead to the wake-up, these are some scenes from the mission control room in the seconds before the signal arrived, and shortly afterwards. So we were able to have somebody from the PR team in the operations center on that day, and it's me sitting with the operations team, and this was because we needed to have that robust confirmation that the spacecraft was awake in order to use the social media successfully and to wake up the Twitter account. So while everybody was celebrating, then Andrea is providing the confirmation that the spacecraft is awake, and I send the famous "Hello World" tweet. I don't expect you to read the graph at the bottom. It's just to make the point that we didn't just do this in English, but we did it in the 22 languages of the ESA member states at the time. And this was a really good way to allow people who didn't necessarily speak English, but were still involved with ESA and the mission, to still engage online and to retweet and to share the message across Europe and the world. And these were some of the headlines that other news agencies wrote about this event, focusing on the Twitter spacecraft. We also had a kind of mini social media campaign using the hashtag #WakeUpRosetta, where we encouraged people on Twitter to shout virtually at the spacecraft to help wake it up. There were 2 peaks during the day, 10 o'clock in the morning when the actual spacecraft alarm clock was going off, and then there was about 8 hours where the spacecraft itself was putting itself into its wake-up mode. It was warming up and realigning itself with Earth, and then sending the signal back. And this is the second peak here, where people are really getting into waking up the spacecraft and waiting for the Twitter signal as well. Then Of course, the spacecraft was awake, but there were still many months until actually arriving at the comet. The instruments had to be commissioned, had to be prepared for doing scientific operations. We used that opportunity to provide blog posts about what the instruments would do when we actually got to the comet, and this was a way also to interact with the various scientists working on those instruments and to learn about what the instruments were doing and to prepare journalists and the general public alike for what the mission was going to do. At the same time, there were also 10 operational manoeuvres that were needed to align the spacecraft with the comet. And for the Twitter account, we employed the strategy of basically not tweeting during these manoeuvres, which lasted from anything from a couple of minutes to several hours, as a way to build suspense and to engage with the audience in a different way. And this was also an opportunity for the Rosetta and the Philae Twitter accounts to build up their relationship. And the Philae account is run by colleagues at DLR. Of course, we arrived at the comet, and just like the Hello World tweet from the Wake Up, this time we did Hello Comet. We sent a postcard, and again we did this in the ESA languages. And there was then a very busy period where we were choosing the landing site, Philae helping out, deciding where he wants to land. And again, this was we had in parallel the development of these cartoon characters to share this exciting adventure. So a couple of things to talk about around the comet landing week itself. We basically did near to 24-hour coverage online for a period of a week, and in particular the night before the comet landing day. And this was done both on Twitter with the Rosetta and Philae accounts, and also by the blog providing the more technical updates when we learned them. And having built up good relationships with the Rosetta mission teams, we were able to get quite immediate access to the information as they were learning it as well, even when things weren't going quite to plan. So we could share in real time what was happening. And there were a number of live press briefings as well at each of these occasions where the status was reported. The pictures at the top here, if you can see, so for the Wake Up I had access to the main control room. For the landing, a number of us had access to the principal investigator support area, where the lead scientists for many of the instruments were there to discuss the results and the status of things that were coming down. On this occasion, I was there when the farewell images were arriving. And then the picture in the middle is, I have a memory stick in my hand with the images. So in parallel, there was a press briefing where these images were presented. So it's the image that Rosetta took of Philae leaving the spacecraft, and the image that Philae took looking back at Rosetta as well. And then in parallel, I could then tweet the images from the Rosetta spacecraft. And on this occasion, we also had attracted the attention of Twitter itself. We had a small partnership with them on that day, and they picked up a number of the tweets and shared it to their 33 million followers as well. So we were really getting quite a lot of attention all around the world. A few messages of support just to show how far around the world the message was reaching. Not just members of the public, but also politicians, industry, astronauts, and Google as well. Had a Google Doodle once we had confirmed the successful first touchdown. As you know, things didn't go quite to plan, in the sense that Philae bounced to another landing site. We had to think a bit on the fly as to how we were going to communicate this. There wasn't any press briefing planned, because originally Philae, if it had landed in the original site, would have continued its science mission for several months then. And so there were just a few journalists left that night, and we congregated in the briefing area at the main control room, and basically just followed in real time what was happening. And we were in close contact with our colleagues at the Lander Control Center as well. So we basically dreamt up the final conversation as we learned new information and thought about how we wanted to portray Philae going into hibernation, but with the emphasis on the hope that he would wake up again. and the fact that Rosetta would be carrying on doing wonderful science while Philae was asleep. And it gained quite a lot of attention on Twitter in particular, and I think part of that is because the only way you could actually follow was on Twitter and via the blog. There weren't any live press briefings at this time. So as well as the traditional way in which you can measure how well a message has travelled, for me it was, and for all of us working in social media, it was really exciting to discover we'd been included in the 2014 Facebook Year in Review, the Twitter Moments, and also Google's Year in Search, and also the New Year's Eve Google Doodle by Google as well at the end of the year. Just to share with you a few impact statistics. So for the Facebook and the Rosetta accounts, you can see there are 3 main peaks, and these correspond to the 3 main media events that we had. So in the first instance, Wake Up, then arriving at the comet, and then finally the comet landing, where there's really massive increases in followers. On the blog, we set a new record of 5.5 million views on the blog that week as well. Of course, the story continues into 2015. One highlight that we've been looking forward to on Twitter was Philae waking up, so we could continue these conversations. Of course, it hasn't really quite gone to plan just yet, with the connection not being stable enough, but there are plenty of other things happening. So we've celebrated a year at the comet. We've celebrated perihelion, so the comet has passed its closest point to the sun. And we continue to use the account to provide updates on the status of the mission, both in terms of where it is in the solar system, the very latest images from the comet, and of course all the science results as they happen. So stay tuned, there's plenty more to come, and there's also a new cartoon in progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily, and congratulations. I have a question, but I will ask Karen's presentation before asking it. Any questions? Yes, Hervé.
Yes, first of all, I think the job has been is wonderful, but I want to share a thought with you. Last Monday, there was 2 press releases in the space domain. The Mars water and the binary nucleus. And we didn't hear anything in the press about the binary nucleus. So why? Do you have any idea why it's maybe less teasing than the NASA?
I think well, I personally have seen the binary story picked up in quite a lot of online news. I don't know about traditional news, but probably the Mars one maybe dominated it. I think it depends on the journalist's interest as well, and well, water on Mars is always very exciting, so I don't think it's anything that like we did or didn't do, it's just the stories that travel with people.
But maybe
do you have a comment as well?
As a case study, it would be interesting to look at the detail, how much the Mars story made it up and how much the binary study made it up. I don't know. That's interesting. But you did not have time to read all the newspapers while you were here.